everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor the Art Impressions Way, and this week's project is another Christmas one and a snowy one. So we're going to place this little fox on a little snowy bench, add a little Christmas tree and some holly, and you can do this project so quickly. Actually, it only takes 5 stamps, so that's even better. So in order to get started, we are going to need a few things, and that would be the bench set. So we're going to use this bench right here. We're also going to use this little guy from the mini critter set, but you could use any of these. All of them will work. We're also going to use 2 things from the foliage set 2. So the little fir bough and the little vine here. We're going to use both of those. And then from the branches set, one of my favorites, this little guy right here. So that's all it takes to create this little scene. We're going to place this little guy on the bench, and I think you could use this technique in a lot of different scenes. Okay, so let's get going. We're going to start out by inking the bench, and we're going to ink it in 2 colors. The biggest thing, or the most important thing, is the area where the snow is. So this line right here on the bench. So this line right here and this line at the top. We want to make sure that we are using the African violet on those 2 lines. And then we want to leave these lines off of the bottom. So really we're only going to ink the 2 lines on the bottom of the seat of the bench. Okay, so I know that might sound a little confusing, but honestly, it's pretty easy. So remember what I said about the very top line? We're going to start with sepia, and we're just going to ink everything but that top line. And you can see kind of the broken lines in the bench here. We're really only going as far as the broken area is on the stamp. So just kind of work your way down a little bit like this. Don't touch that top line. And then over here on the bottom, the very bottom line, we're going to ink that, and then the legs of the bench. So just take your time. It's really important that you ink this the correct way in order to get the right effect. So just kind of take your time. Make sure the stamp is really clean before you do that. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get this second line. This is where the little snowy bank is. So we want to make sure that is African violet and the very top. So the very top line like that. And we should be good to go here. We're going to stamp this right into the middle of our watercolor paper, and it should look just like that. So let's go ahead and add our little fox in here. And like I said, you could use any of those little critters. You could put a little birdhouse on there, some little birds. There's lots of things that you can do. So we're going to ink this little fox and use the positioner because we want to make sure that we get this little fox in the right place. So I'm going to ink him in the sepia. So that's the number 45, sepia. And I'm just going to place my little shield into the corner of my L bar, and that's going to stamp flush right in between. And now I can see where to place this little fox, and I'm going to put him right in the middle, I think. Place that back in place, huff on it, and then stamp that little guy onto the bench. And we are in business. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next step, and that is to begin to pull the color out of the lines. So remember what I said about that blue line. This is our blue line here, where the snow is, and our blue line at the top. So we're going to come underneath this little blue line, and we're going to bring it up like this. And we're going to do the same over on this side. So we're kind of creating this idea of the snow and just creating a little bank here, just like this. So he's sort of tucked himself in between these little snow banks, created a cozy little spot. And we have just created that just by pulling the color out of the lines. So let's go on here, and we're going to drag the color out now from the back. So these areas back in here, those are going to be pretty dark. Just kind of drag your brush over these lines. Don't worry about this too much. If the lines aren't quite long enough, just drag them down. Super easy. So now we're at the top. So this is where our blue line is at the very top. So we're going to come and drag it up above. So up above, just like this. And we're going to create a little snowy mound up above here. We're going to do that with the sky, so not quite yet. We'll get to that. Okay, we've got a really good start here. You can see that that's starting to look more three-dimensional. And we're going to add some African violet now to our palette. I'm going to add a little more shading in here. So just add a little bit of this to your image. These legs back in the back, these are going to be pretty dark. So you can go ahead and color that in pretty dark. This under here, there's an overhang where this little seat is on the bench. That's going to be darker. And actually under here, this is probably going to be pretty dark too. So let's just drag some of that color out. This little board here, that kind of sticks out a little bit. So we can add a little color to that. And actually a little blue is good on any white area because nothing is uncolored. Even if it's white, even if this bench is white, it's still going to have a shadow on it. So that's what we're showing. And let's make sure we get enough color in here. It's amazing what you can do with African violet. I just love this color so much. It's just a great color for shading, and especially for snow because it's such a cool color. So now we're going to drag the color out of this little fox. So first thing I'm going to do working on him is really darken his little nose and his eye. So really, really darken that. Make sure that really pops out. Clean your brush off and then just pull some of this color out. So remember when you're doing the tops of any of these little characters, remember the tops of the image needs to show a highlight. See how contoured this is? This is contoured here too and here. So we want to show that highlight at the very top. So never color all the way to the top line. Just kind of make a habit of that. You're going to be so much happier with how things turn out if you show that. Okay, so let's add some color now to the palette, and I'm adding the number 6 brown. So this one right here, it's kind of a reddish brown. It's not really red, but it's kind of a reddish brown, kind of a rust color, and I think it's the perfect color for a little fox. And we're just going to brush the color on, even on his little ears, the very tips of his ears. You want to make sure that you are not coloring all the way to the top. And just kind of brush this color in, just like that. And stay in your section. So notice I did the head first. Now I'm moving on to the body, and then I will move on to the tail. So you want to do each section individually. It's really, really important. Remember the highlight at the top. Just kind of avoid that urge to color in everything line to line. I know that you want to do that, but you just can't allow yourself to do it. You'll be so much happier if you don't do that. Don't color everything in solid. And we can come back in here and really get this dark where this little ear is. We can do that later too. So remember, if it's light on top, it's going to be darker on the bottom, right? So this down in here, this is going to be much darker than the top. And we can let that dry a little bit and then we can come back to it. Okay, so let's go on to the next step. You can see how easy this is. This is so easy and so quick to do, and I love that, especially at Christmas, because we don't have a lot of time at Christmas. It's so crazy busy, and if you can put out a handmade special card for someone in 10 minutes, I think that's pretty good. And these, they're all unique and one of a kind, so it just means a lot to people, encourages people now in the, in the holiday season. Okay, so you can see I've mixed some water with some African violet, and I'm gonna brush in the sky now. So I want to start above this little bench because I want to put a little mound on here, a little snowy mound. Don't overthink this at all. Don't overthink it. Just put some color on and move on. Make sure when you're doing sky that you have enough water on your brush that you can blend it out. If you're seeing brush strokes, you don't have enough water. So get more water on your brush and blend it out. Let's also create the background here with our blue. So by that I mean I'm just not bringing that color all the way down to the bottom of the bench. I'm sort of creating a little snowy mound back here. So let's go on to the bench. So obviously this bench is sitting in the snow, so we want to show that, but keep it really, really subtle. Don't overdo it with the color, just a little bit. And what you're going for is the idea of it. So first of all, we're going to see a shadow under here. So we want to brush that in. This is all with the 86. So lightly brush that in. Just a little shadow. This is into the snow, so it's going to create a little bit of a mound here. So let's show that. And then our little guy, he had to get over to this bench. So we're gonna just show his little footprints here. Just, you know, a few little things. Don't overthink this kind of thing. You're just showing the idea of it. And clearly you can see that. That may not be exactly what fox feet look like, but nobody cares about that. We're just showing that this little guy has been in the snow and he's made his way over to this cozy bench and he's taken a nap. Okay, so let's go on from here, and you can see this is very, very simple and very understated, and we don't need to put a lot of stress into it. And I think that's why a lot of times we're not happy with what we've done, because we've overworked it. So keep those areas light. You can always go back in and add more to it, but better to keep it light. Okay, so let's go in and add our little tree in the back, and we're just going to do that with a pencil. So I'm just going to take a pencil and I'm just going to draw a little line in here. And it's probably 1.25 inches maybe. You know, it's about to here on the bench. So maybe the middle of the back of the bench. And I'm going to now ink my little fir bough that came in that foliage set. So this little fir bough. I want this pretty dark, so I'm going to ink this in African violet first. And then I'm going to stamp it off one time. Just stamp it off one time. And now I'm going to ink it into the pine green, the whole thing. And I'm going to start out with the topper. So just the topper, just like this. And another little one on the side. And just kind of work your way down. This is so easy to do, and just kind of bring these branches down and around. You can make this tree as big as you want. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to take my sepia now, and I'm kind of going to darken in this little line here. Just like that. And I've got a little Christmas tree. And I'm going to dip my brush off now. So you want to make sure that you use just a little bit of water, not a lot, because we want to see this detail. We want to see that this is a little fir tree. And so you're going to soften the lines, but you're going to keep it very, very light. And the same with this as far as the shadow goes. So we're going to see a little shadow under here. And just a little bit like this, a little bit here and there, good to go. And let's move over to the other side. And we're going to add our little holly, and that's just going to be using our little branch. We're going to ink that now in the 72, and just stamp it a couple of times. You know, you can do as much of this also as you want. And let's switch greens here. We're going to go with a lighter green. And here's that little foliage. We're just going to ink the top and just stamp it in here a few times. Don't worry about this, that you've got it in the right place. Honestly, you know, it really does not matter. These little images are so simple and cute that the detail is not important. And actually, there's very little detail. So let's add water to this now. Remember, stamp and add water. That's the whole technique. Make sure you are pinching your brush off. I don't probably say this enough in each video. I should say it in every video. Make sure you're pinching your brush off. When you pinch the water off, it should be flat like this. And as soon as you touch it to the paper, it's going to come back to a point. So don't worry about which side to, you know, add to the paper. Don't worry about that. But make sure that you are brushing that off, because you need to control the water. That's so important. If you get too much water, you're not going to be happy with how it turns out. That's probably the most common problem when people say to me, mine's just not turning out the same. I'm not getting the same effect. Most of the time, it's the paper, or it's too much water. So really, really practice that. It will make a huge difference. Okay, I think we are about finished. Let's add a little detail now to that holly. I just love doing this. Adding a little pop of red Just so cute. When you do little berries, do them in little groups. And, you know, try to keep it in the light areas. That always works the best. And then, of course, you can go back here and you can add some snow. This is a little white pigment pen. And you can add snow in the background. Keep it where the colors are darkest so that you can see it. And you can add as much of this as you want. Glitter as well. Keep that glitter coming. Okay, so one last thing to do, sign and date. And we are finished with another project. Try this one. I think you're really gonna love it. It's so fun and it's easy to change up. Try different characters on there and try to add all those little special things and you're gonna make someone's day. And for more watercolor, follow me on Instagram, Bonnie Krebs Bible Journaling. Lots more videos and tips for those of you who love watercolor and just can't get enough. Thanks again for watching.